Hey students, how we doing? Hope you had a nice spring break. I know things are kind of weird with the coronavirus right now. Not sure exactly what's going to happen with going to school and how long we'll be out and when we'll come back. I don't really know what will happen with the AP test and when we will have it yet. People in charge of making the decisions are working hard, so they will let us know when the time is right. However, I thought I would just make the screencasts and we would keep learning our units. So, our current unit that we're starting after spring break here is stress, motivation, and emotions. And that's kind of appropriate because we're all a little bit stressed right now. So, we'll learn about stress. All right, let's see where we're going to get started here. Okay, we'll just keep learning what we were going to learn at the same pace that I would have taught you if you were in school. And we'll be ready for the AP test when it comes. And if it's delayed, we'll figure that out. All right, so here's our stress and health part one presentation. It doesn't say on the slide part one, but this is just part one. There are two parts for the stress unit presentations. All right, so in this part, we're going to look at causes of stress, physical responses and illnesses to stress, and the general adaptation syndrome. So, stress, by definition, is any circumstance, real or perceived, that threatens a person's well being. So, it could be something bad, it could also be positive. Some positive life things are stressful. It could be real, or it could be that it's in your head, but it's still stressing you out. So stress can also be adaptive. In fearful situations, our body immediately responds and we can run away if we see like a bear in the woods. So stress could save our lives. It can also be maladaptive. If you're stressed out, prolonged for a long time, chronic stress, it increases your risk of illness and other health problems like heart disease. So, what are the main causes of stress? We can break it down into three categories. The first one is catastrophic events, floods, combat stress, natural disasters. When these things happen, and it can cause you to be depressed, it can cause you to lose sleep and have a lot of anxiety. So, that's catastrophic events. Another type, which we all experience on a regular basis, is called daily hassles. Getting stuck in traffic, getting stuck in a long line, job stress, feeling burnout from school. These are the most frequent sources of stress, and they can damage your health also. The biggest stressor for most people is just having too much to do. In America, we just tend to pack stuff into our lives, and we're trying to do more, more, more all the time, and that becomes stressful. Third category of stress is significant life changes. This could be bad changes like the death of a loved one or a divorce or loss of a job. Could be positive things like getting married or getting a promotion. Even the positive things can stress you out because change can be stressful. The newness, new situations, new expectations can be stressful. Can leave you vulnerable to disease. Here's a graph that shows percentage of people experiencing high stress by age group. So 18 and 19-year-olds are the most stressed out adults, then 20 to 24, and then stress goes down over time. So I don't know if that early adulthood, if it's getting into school, getting good grades, starting a career, dating, all that stuff could be pretty stressful. So what does your body do? Your body has a stress reaction. If it's an acute stressor, like you're on a hike and there's a bear in the woods, boom, there's the fight or flight response. Your adrenal glands will pour out a couple of stress hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine, and it doesn't say it on this slide, but also cortisol. And those immediately affect your body. Your heart rate increases, your respiration, your body mobilizes sugar and fat for immediate energy, and your sense of pain is dulled. Your pupils open up. It's called dilating. Your pupils dilate. So your body immediately reacts to acute stressors like a bear in the woods. And Cannon called that the fight or flight response. We talked about that earlier in the year. When this happens, you have a variety of health related consequences. One is that you might engage in unhealthy behaviors like smoking, drinking, poor nutrition, bad sleep. So that can happen. When the stress hormones are released, unfortunately, they have some negative health consequences. It could lead to heart disease, suppression of the immune system, or autonomic nervous system effects like headaches, feeling of tension in your neck and your shoulders. That's called hypertension. Could also lead to ulcers in the stomach, which is when the acid in your stomach eats away at the lining of your stomach. So, all those things that happen, and researchers for a long time were wondering, like, how? Why is it something psychological, being stressed? How does that cause you to have heart problems or a hole in your stomach or to catch a cold? So they figured out what's going on. When the stress hormones are released, energy goes away from the immune system and towards dealing with the stressor. And so if that's prolonged, then your immune system becomes compromised for a long period of time, and all of those bad things can happen. They've also noticed that when those stress hormones are released, they suppress your body's production of lymphocytes. And lymphocytes are the things in your blood that fight bacteria and viruses and cancer cells. So the lymphocytes are out there fighting and keeping you healthy, but when those stress hormones are released, you have fewer lymphocytes. So there's a significant link between the psychological phenomenon of being stressed and the biological change to your immune system. So in the heart, you could have elevated blood pressure for a long time if you're stressed. Could lead to coronary heart disease, clogging the vessels that nourish the heart muscle. The heart muscle needs blood, and those vessels get clogged. So one of the reasons they think, I don't know if you know this, but life expectancy, women live longer than men in most countries, on average 5 to 8 years. And part of the reason they think is that men are more stressed and they're having more problems with their hearts and they're dying younger because of that. That's just one explanation. There's other explanations. They've also done research on colds. When people are rating themselves on how stressed they are and then also keeping track of whether they have a cold or not, there's a clear correlation between having a cold and being more stressed out. Remember, the correlation doesn't prove causation, but it's a strong correlation. Okay, so what's going on with stress? A guy named Seeley noticed that there's a similar reaction when people get stressed, that our reaction follows a pattern. And this chart up here shows you phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So phase 1, the stressor happens, and you actually become less stressed, and then boom, your stress increases during the alarm reaction. Then for a long time, you're in phase 2, which is the resistance phase, where you're coping with the stressor. So let's say this is you in school, and you forgot that you had an AP Psych exam, and then like at 7 o'clock at night, the night before the test, a buddy tells you, "Hey, are you ready for the test?" Boom, you have an alarm reaction. Then you have a resistance phase where you would be studying that night or studying the next morning, cramming as much as you could. And then you'd have phase 3, exhaustion. Maybe you wouldn't really get exhausted from just the stress of one test. But if you think of exam week, boom, there's the alarm reaction. Holy cow, exams are coming. There's 2 weeks of being stressed out, and then you're exhausted after exams. A lot of students catch a cold right after exam week, and that's because their immune system is compromised. Okay, with that pattern that Saley described, the general adaptation syndrome. Another guy noticed that how you appraise a situation matters to how stressed out you get. By appraise, we mean how do you assess? What do you think? How do you interpret the situation? So if it's exam week and you're feeling good about all your classes and you're well prepared, then you're going to have a different reaction to somebody who's been slacking off and is unprepared. So your appraisal of the situation, like this chart says, if you appraise it as a threat or as a challenge, you're going to have a different stress reaction. So that's the key. Are you appraising it as a threat or a challenge? All right, that's the end of part one. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, you can email them to me or see me in class.